hey everyone, if you guys don't know me, if you guys weren't part of the first webinar, my name is Samantha Wong. I work at Apple. I'm in finance, and I'm here kind of in part as a new real estate investor, hopefully like yourselves too. So I met Eng last year, or a little more than that, some time ago, when he was still at Apple and presenting to the Apple Real Estate Investment Club. So I ended up getting in with him on a deal. It's going really well, and I'm really happy with it. And I'm just really excited to have learned from Eng, and really excited for him to continue talking to people at Apple, even if he isn't still there. Because I find his, webinars and all of his educational material like really invaluable. So hopefully you guys will too. So today Eng is going to be talking about OZs, and hopefully, as long as I can figure this out, I'm not super technologically savvy, but we're going to try out breakout rooms so that maybe a few of us here can meet one another and maybe network, see, what everyone's up to in terms of investments, and can see how it goes.
Thanks, Samantha. And we're doing this as a regular monthly series. So we're calling it First Wednesdays. I think this is the first Wednesday. Yeah, this is the first Wednesday of February. So we'll have hopefully another one first Wednesday in March. We have kind of a long list of topics. Plus, we're always open to feedback on what topics you'd like me to present about or us to talk about. Sometimes this can be a dense presentation like this one. I'll make it very short. Sometimes it's light, and we can have a lot more time for breakout rooms. So I'm hoping that's going to be good and fun for everybody. Without further ado, I will start the presentation because I know it's long and this is a lot of good information. And for those who know how to use Zoom and Q&A, feel free to just ask questions throughout. And Samantha, you be our spirit guide and interject as much as you can, because I'd rather not just have a monologue. So opportunity zones, it's a very new thing, and I want to highlight it. And a lot of what I do is actually very self-serving and self-interested. And hopefully you guys find my self-serving of just trying to figure out how to not pay taxes and invest wisely appropriate for you guys. So this is going to be, and we're going to talk about, I'll introduce myself, talk about the history of operating zones, what it's an OZ. I'll go into technical definitions, investing in an OZ fund, and why you should invest in OZ. And I also will be sharing this deck and the recording afterwards, so don't feel pressure to take any notes or anything. So a little about me. Hopefully most of you guys are recurring at this point, but I want to reiterate that I've been in lots of different roles, background in economics and finance, did analytics, worked then on the iPhone team, music, Siri, and most recently started Tozy Capital, where we just crossed $100 million of assets under management. And I've been real estate investor since 2009, and been investing in syndicating opportunity zones as well since last year. So a little background about my real estate experience. I've been investing for cash flow, and I always tell my prospective investors or people I know, like, I like to migrate to new angles of things. If you always stay in the same place, California investing, things can get compressed, cap rates compress, returns get lower. So I move all around all the time. I'm always trying to migrate and try to find the latest angle, the latest opportunity. And of course, opportunity zones are a perfect example of that. So a little bit of history of opportunity zones. 2017 tax cuts. There was two major things for real estate investors. Two things I love to talk about: bonus depreciation, where you can take a portion of real estate and take 100% of it in the first year, instead of waiting the typical 27.5 or 39 years, and opportunity zones. So through the same Trump tax cuts, these two things merged and really facilitated a lot of what we're trying to do.
Hey, sorry, I don't know if you're, no, I don't think your slides are moving.
Okay, I've had issues. How's that?
It just says that you've started screen sharing, but can't see the slides yet. Maybe try stopping and starting it again.
Had this issue last time as well.
Oh man. Too many people on Zoom.
How about now?
Mm-mm.
All right, so there's a picture of Republicans, and then I'm highlighting bonus appreciation, Cossack. I will try to figure this out, and I'm actually going to try to do this one more time. Anything now?
No, still not there. I wonder if I can try to share.
Can you share?
I don't know if do you want to send me
you.
the, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Happens all the time. If you guys are from Apple, you understand this. You also have at least 5-10 minutes of technical difficulties when you start any meeting.
Always.
Even a 30-minute meeting.
Always. Okay. Let me just put that 1 second.
While Samantha's trying to get through it, the history slides, it's just a bunch of pictures. But really, what I want to highlight is that it's a recent thing. Late 2017 tax cuts really allowed this to happen. And it was bipartisan support. It was introduced by Senators Tim Scott and Cory Booker, a Republican and a Democrat, who co-sponsored the Investing in Opportunity Act. That was part of the Trump tax cuts.
Okay, let me just try to share. Sorry, 1 second. More technical difficulties.
Okay.
Sorry, I need to give Zoom some permissions. So.
Oh, then you have to like leave and.
Oh, then I do have to leave.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll leave. I'll come back.
Okay. Anything yet? Good. Yes. Good. Okay. All right. As you can see, I never close any tabs. So hopefully, is my screen moving?
Yes.
You guys see this? Good. Yes.
Yes.
Pictures. Good. All right. Pictures. Bipartisan support. I want to highlight that because as we get to the new administration, some people might look into opportunity zones as something that is not. 1 second. It's like might be on the chopping blocks, but I think it could be evolving. And from my sources, Capitol Hill, it could be a little bit more evolving around the opportunity part of the zone. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a bit. So a little bit of inside scoop history, though. Sean Parker was one of the instrumental lobbyists for opportunity zones. And he and this group paid like $1 million. I think this whole group paid $16 million to lobby for this really essentially the only tax break, or really the only very easy tax break for capital gains when you sell stocks, which of course someone like Sean Parker, who owns a lot of Facebook stock, and people in Silicon Valley would really love to have. And so a few years later, he looks like this, just because, that's what money does to you. And it's a Recode article of, Sean Parker, little known tax, part of the tax code. And every 1% is in Silicon Valley wants in. So it's a pretty, if you probably have heard of it, obviously guess why you guys are here, but it's one of the major things that a lot of investors are coming in from Silicon Valley to invest in real estate, opportunity zones for the first time. So what is an OZ? It is a regionally designated place, opportunity zone, in these areas that's supposed to be helping around development. Although that's not necessarily always the case because there are operating zones in downtown San Jose, which is a very heavily developed area already. It has three major benefits, and I'll reiterate these points over and over again. Tax deferral. So if you invest capital gains, meaning that you sold Apple stock for $200,000 and your cost base is $100,000, you have capital gains of $100,000, and instead of paying long-term capital gains or short-term capital gains, depending on how you sold it, you would instead invest the whole $100,000 and not pay that 23% tax rate, and essentially have that deferred for 5 years, or if you hold it for 5 years, have it deferred until 2027, where it steps up in basis of 10%, meaning that you essentially pay 10% less tax in 6 years. So not only is it deferral, meaning that you get a discount on your investment, but it's a deferral as well as a reduction in taxes. And then on the investment itself, if you hold for 10 years, all future capital gains is eliminated, which includes depreciation recapture. And this qualifies for sale of stock, long-term and short-term, sale of businesses, and sale of real estate. And I'll reiterate these points through some examples as I go through. So so for example, an asset sale for $120,000, your $20 cost basis, your capital gains is the net profits, right? You invest the whole net profits, not just the tax amount. You invest the whole net profits to defer the tax amount within 180 days, typically, although that's not necessarily true now. And then you can get the step up basis in end of 2026, where you pay in 2027 tax year. You hold for 10 years. So I just want to reiterate that point. I know I'm saying it over and over again, but essentially why people invest in operating zones. And latest IRS notification allowed a huge extension. Before it was extended all the way to the end of last year. Now it's extended to essentially March 31st this year. So if you have sold stock even in October 5th, 2019, and you probably paid taxes on it, you could invest those capital gains into an operating zone before March 31st and essentially file an amendment and get those taxes back. And of course, if you sold any stock in 2020, you have until the end of 2021, March 31st, 2021 to do that. And this is, by the way, this is a self-reported thing. There's a form you can download on the IRS website. I'm happy to share that form as well. Happy to share instructions afterwards on how to actually file your taxes when you file your taxes. You show that you did have that capital gains, but then you show in the same tax, the tax documents you file, a form that you put that capital gains to work in an operating zone. The operating zone sponsor, someone like myself, would then qualify the operating zone for IRS treatment. So you don't necessarily have to do that. You just have to invest in an operating zone fund. We then invest that operating zone into operating zone business and qualify it. Although technically we don't even have to yet. You could have a fund without an investment in it. And I can talk a little bit about those timelines as well. So I'm going to go into the densest part of this conversation here. Technical definitions, my favorite part. So QZ, qualified operating zone. That's the zones that you invest in. Qualified operating fund is essentially the stuff that you put your money in after 180 days, or really from a fairly long period of time, what I just said. Qualified operating business is the business that the fund invests in. So the fund then invests in the business. The business can be real estate, qualified operating business property. And so that's how that thing works. Can I do capital gain tax amends or returns filed for year? Yes, so you can do a amendment for the year 2019 taxes. Just like I said, if your capital gains occurred from October 4th in 2019 to the end of 2019, if you sold your stocks then and you made those gains, you can then have the extension. And if you had like a net extension, net loss in that year, you essentially just you probably wouldn't need it. But if you had net gain, obviously that's when you would want to make sure you apply that for your amendment.
I have a question, Eng, about the terms you just went through. So could you have multiple funds and businesses in one QOZ, or is it like a 1-to-1 ratio?
So QOZ is just the land area. The QZF is the investment vehicle. The QZB is the actual investment.
Got it.
It's like a holding company and a property. It's a propco and a holdco. That's what we call in real estate. If you invest in any syndication, there's always a holdco. When I say holdco, I mean holding company, and propco, I mean property company. And so it's a very similar type of style. And I actually have some diagrams a little bit.
Okay.
So 180 days, testing twice a year. So we have to validate our tests. Domestic partnerships. I'm not going to go through all this. I'll share this afterwards. Qualified option businesses test. So if you bought property in an OZ, can you say, hey, I'm in an OZ. I don't have to pay taxes? It's not necessarily true. It has to qualify, right? So it's qualified operating zones, not just operating zones. So 70% tangible property tests, meaning that at least 70% is 70% of the funds go to QZB. So actually, not all the funds need to go into QZB. And I'll use these acronyms again and again, qualified option business. Intangible test means that all the intangible property must be used in the active conduct of the business in operating zone. It's kind of hard to understand, but essentially means that there can't be anything that's sort of done outside the zone, which is kind of hard to say, but for real estate, easy to say, because you can actually invest in businesses like businesses can actually be QZBs. So it doesn't have to be real estate, although real estate is a business and it's one of the safest forms of business. A few more definitions. It can't be sin business. So that's, cannot be a golf course. I'm not sure why they call it sin business, but can be a golf course or massage parlor, suntan facility. These are the stuff I found online and I just wanted to highlight that.
There's actually
yeah.
a question from someone in the audience saying that they saw the San Jose airport is listed as a California opportunity zone. So they were wondering what that means for the airport to be an opportunity zone.
Just because the thing's in an OZ doesn't mean that it's a QOZB. Qualified is the word, imperative word, right? We're going to use all these terms, but it's qualified opportunity zone. So we're qualifying it. We have to qualify it twice a year with accountants and auditing and all this stuff. And we had to qualify it through our tests and these tests here. Property tests, which is essentially what you get most of you guys be doing. It can be a new property. So it doesn't necessarily have to be 100% substantial improvement, which is probably what most of you guys heard about. It could be original use. So these two are a bit more nebulous. It's harder to define. You can essentially buy something that was constructed before and then not open. Why would that be the case? It's very rare that's the case. So that's why those things aren't done. And then when you open it, after you buy it, it then qualifies as OZ. So you don't actually construct it. But most people do QZBs through the substantial improvement test, which means that if you buy something for $1 million and the land value is $500,000, the property value is $500,000, you have to put then another $500,000, 100% of the cost basis of the property in substantial improvements, essentially blow it up, make it really nice, or construct something on it. That's essentially what most QZBs are, construction projects. And so investing in operating zone funds, what does that look like? you can invest your capital gains or in an S corp, which actually extends your timeline a little bit. But I'm not gonna go to that. You can invest it in the QZB. Actually, this slide is about from your own fund. Sorry, you can actually set up your own fund. It's gonna take you around. You can get some templates online to file it, but usually a tax attorney would charge you like $20,000 to set up your fund. But once you set up a fund, for example, you have 31 months to then invest it into a QZB. So you can actually just say, I have no idea what I'm going to invest in. I'm just going to set up my own fund. I'm going to put it into a QZF and just sit tight for 31 months. I'm not sure why you would, but you could do that. So if you have like millions of dollars of capital gains, feel free to do that. I think that could be a wise move where you can then invest your QZF into multiple QZBs as a fund manager yourself. But most deals are essentially where you're the investor, you put qualified open zone money into the QZF. The QZF then has ownership of the QZB. And then the QZB owns the QZB property. Lots of little holding companies, lots of liability protections, lots of separation, very confusing. And I have to show this every time to a bank. I just had like 2 bank calls today. I was like, okay, so this holds that, and this holds that, and I own this, and this holds that, and I'm not far removed from that.
Oh man, this is like an Apple keynote right here. Acronyms, diagrams, technical explanations.
Yeah. One QZF can be used by multiple QZBs. Yeah. So a lot of opportunity zones are actually funds, like actual funds where they can invest in multiple businesses. So that's true.
And then there's one more question. Is the tax benefit really only to invest your capital gains versus the cash you have on hand? If you don't have the capital gains, is there a benefit in looking at a QOZ?
So I think there's 2 parts of that question. Well, actually, it is 2 parts, but I think I'm interpreting it. Yes, it's really only for capital gains, and most QZFs will only accept qualified option zone capital gains. It's just too hard to manage that separation. They will try to ask you, right? It's self-reported, right? They're not going to say, hey, show me your tax returns. This is capital gains. But it doesn't necessarily have to be the cash from the Amazon business, like the capital gains from that sell stock. You could have used that cash a long time ago to buy a house in last year, but now you have more new cash sitting on hand that you earned from your salary. But then you can say that was associated from that gain sale. So like it's just a paper trail of it, not necessarily a tangible trail. Like this is it. Another way to get around this, if you have Apple stock, for example, that appreciated a lot, and now you have so much unrealized gains, but you want to keep your Apple stock because you really believe in the future of the company, you can sell it and then buy it the same day and then essentially step up the cost basis. And now you have a huge tax bill. That sucks. But now you have huge capital gains, and your cash that you're sitting on the side that you that was not capital gains cash now becomes QZ cash, because essentially you transformed it, do that step up in basis and creating that capital gains tax. So that's a good way to try to create capital gains if you find a deal that you really love and you want to get all the tax benefits of investing in a qualified option zone. Hopefully that makes sense. That's a lot of acronyms even for me. I also want to talk about state conformity. For some of you guys who are in California, we are a non-conforming state. So if anyone has told you that you can save California taxes, sorry, even I pay California taxes. I know.
That's crazy.
It's so sad.
That's crazy.
I can't get around it. Yeah.
That's when it really can't be done.
Yeah, exactly. But the red states here are the ones that are non-conforming, which means that in California, the capital gains there's no capital gains tax. It's ordinary income. If you sell and long-term, short-term, doesn't matter. You pay 13.1%, or if you're in the top bracket. But they're full conformity. There's no capital gains tax, so it doesn't really matter. Like Texas, congratulations, you don't owe any taxes anyway, so OZ doesn't really matter. For the state tax, of course, there's federal taxes. So just FYI on that. So that's why I usually use the 23.8% tax rate for federal and not adding that California. Although Governor Newsom is evaluating it. I think he's been saying that for 2 years. I'm not holding out hope. I hope he does, and I will file an amendment when he does. I also want to bring up another point with operating zones. One of the things you can do with operating zones is defer capital gains on sale of real estate. So you can do that with 1031 exchange as well. And I love 1031 exchanges. So why would you do one or the other? So with operating zones, you step up in basis in 5 years, 10%, only 10%, right? So in 1031 exchange, it steps up full basis, meaning that you don't pay any taxes after you pass away. And so it depends on how much you have to live. Feel free to reach. No capital gains on sale of taxes or OZs. You don't have to do 1031 exchange ever again after that. You just like go away scot-free after 10 years. 1031 exchange, you generally have to 1031 exchange again and again, which fine, that's okay. But the biggest point here is it's a more flexible use of capital. If you sold a house for $1 million, rental property, meaning not personal property, and your cost basis was like $900,000, you bought for $900,000, made $100,000 of profits, and you have like a $500,000 loan. So now you have $500,000 proceeds. You have to, and in 1031 exchange, you have to put that whole $500,000 into another property. And you also have to get a $500 loan or more. With an OZ, you just got to put that little bit of $100,000, and you can do whatever you want with the other $400,000 of proceeds. And so it's a more flexible use of capital when that percentage of profits isn't that high. If your percentage of profits is around like 50% or more, it makes a lot of sense to do the 1031 exchange because you do get that full step up in basis after you die if you plan right. So just FYI on that. I do recommend OZs for those with even small profits. So why should you invest in OZ? I think this is the last few slides before we go into breakout room. The big part of this is taxes. Taxes is the biggest thing you can control. And if you're not focusing on that, shame on you guys. It's really an important thing to understand. It's, you guys make a lot of money, you can pay a lot of taxes, and there's ways to not do that and to defer and pay less. So I'm showing two examples of somebody who had a $100,000 cost basis, sold for $200,000, put that $100,000 of profits in an OZ, got a 15% compounded rate growth on both investments, in this case, investor A, investor B, and paid in year 6 that step down basis, that tax in year 6, deferred in year 6, and then got that returns back all tax free on a 15% compounded. So it's actually a 3.7x ROI on that return. Now investor B, now instead that person starts with a disadvantage. He starts with $23,000 less money, or $24,000 less money, with the $76,000 to invest. So then that person has to catch up a lot more, and only catches up to $308,000 in that growth rate, but then pays taxes on that profits with that $76,000 cost basis and that big tax profit when you sell, right? Because if you invest stocks, you have to sell to get the money out. So there's a huge difference when you compare the two, a 3.7x multiple versus 2.5x, and around 47% higher returns. So hopefully there's a lot of math. I'll test you guys on it later.
There's a question in our chat box. So assume a QOZ asset is refinanced after it has been appraised by 2 times. Then the fund distributes the proceedings from the refinance on year 3. Are the gains accruing tax benefits?
The funds distributes proceedings. Can you try to explain that to me?
I'm not too sure either. Let's see if...
Assume QZF finance after it's praised to X. The fund distributes proceedings. Okay, the gains. So any refinance is tax-free. So there's no taxable outcome when you take out money. You can then invest in something and get the same tax benefits. Those gains essentially equity that you built up. You have that same cost basis. Your equity has gone up because it's gone appraised for 2x, right? So that 1x equity that you got, which is profits, is deferred, and if you hold for 10 years, it's just eliminated. Hopefully that makes sense. So 15% compounded is cool, it's a great number, but that's not necessarily what the S&P has done. And it's done 13.5% average annual returns. I'm not sure if it's compounded, but I think that's right. And it has been done pretty well last year. So no doubting that. I think we try to target a little bit higher. I think sometimes I think this is around the range. I want to highlight that using the same math then, that 16 versus 13, you get a really big difference in the returns. I'm not going to do the math again, but I just want to reiterate the point that real estate does generally get really great returns, and it's almost always more tax favorable. So with that, I want to open a Q&A and then to breakout rooms.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, please feel free to put it in the chat or in the Q&A, and I can read it aloud for the whole group. But just kind of tailing off on Eng, actually taxes kind of were, I'm sure a lot of you here are for the same reasons. Prior to investing in real estate, pretty much everything that I had for investments were in stocks. And so a large part of why I was looking into real estate was for the taxes. So this has all been like really great way of diversifying my savings and investments. So yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not a real estate person that says don't invest in stocks. I'm saying diversify. I like real estate for the cash flow. The cash flow is very tax advantaged, means I don't pay taxes on it. I have stocks for appreciation. I like getting appreciation on QZFs because I can get that tax free as well.
Okay, so we have one question. Can you talk about the type of investments in OZs? Are they more risky?
So most OZs will be, most QZFs really, because you're not really investing in an OZ, you're investing in QZF, will be real estate. And they can be any kind of real estate. So it doesn't necessarily need to be multifamily, commercial, retail, office, senior living, industrial. It can be all of the above. So I'll caution to say that, but investing in an operating zone doesn't mean a no-brainer. You shouldn't just invest in everything that's an operating zone. From what I've found in the market over the past 2 years is everyone who held a land and operating zone in 2017, before the tax law came to 2018, the value went up by 10%. So you're already coming in a little bit of disadvantage. Like they already baking that tax hit on you. But there's so much better advantages elsewhere. So anyways, what I'm saying is it should still be a good investment. Don't just invest in something just because it's a great tax break. Look at it as a good investment. Look at anything as a good investment first, and then think of it, oh, this is now is even better because I get big tax write-off.
Okay, next question is, and this might be for a more advanced tax breakout room, but what are your thoughts and guidance on AMT consideration for 2026 taxes when all the QOZ deferral comes due?
Yeah, that is a much more advanced question.
If it is, we can also, go through it later on too.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Patty.
Okay. All right. Do QOZs typically have monthly or quarterly distributions? Are these distributions also tax-free?
So when you invest in real estate, you usually get a distribution that's that doesn't have a tax withholding, right? So when you get your paycheck, they take taxes out before they send you money. Some QZFs pay quarterly, some pay monthly. It really depends. The ones that we do pay monthly, but because it's a construction project, usually for the first 2 years, there's no payment, and then we pay monthly for the next 8 years. That doesn't have a tax withholding, and then at the end of the year or at the beginning of the next tax year, you get a K1 that highlights that you made this much money, but you lost this much money from depreciation. That depreciation is a step down in cost basis that you typically would have to pay back as a depreciation recapture, but that gets transformed to long-term capital gains when you sell. And guess what? For OZs, you don't have to pay those capital gains. So all depreciation benefits essentially magically disappears after you hold for 10 years.
Okay, and the next question is, when the RSUs are vested, we pay taxes on them right away. Does it count as capital gain to be invested in QOZ?
No, that's ordinary income. So when you get $100,000 of stocks vested whenever, they'll sell a portion of that right away. And so you think you get $100,000 stocks or like 100 shares, but you get like 70 shares or something like that. And that's ordinary income. That's just income you get. Any appreciation that happens from then on is capital gains.
Okay, and when is the deadline to sell your asset stocks and put it into a QOZF?
So there's 2 deadlines I want to highlight. One is you have 180 days from now if you sell today, then you have 180 days to put in the QZF. So there's no deadline to sell. If you sold as far back as October 2019, which is more than a year ago, you have until end of March this year. Another thing is there's a 5-year rule that really doesn't apply after 2021. So after December 2021, there's no more 5-year step up in basis. That doesn't exist anymore. But opportunity zones will exist until 2041. So that 10-year rule will hold until 2041. I'm not sure how things will change. IRS generally changes things pretty frequently. So I assume that will change as well.
In the QOZ versus stock slide, why did investor B have to pay an additional $55K in taxes after 10 years?
Because they had to, in order to get the money, you have to pay long-term capital gains. In order to get any cash flow, you had to sell stuff. And compared to an OZ, when you sell it, there's no capital gains. You don't pay the gains on the returns that you received on that investment.
To be a QOZ, the asset has to be a redevelopment or a ground up development, right?
Those are the most typical, but it's not necessarily the case. There are more, there's sometimes original use clauses. Land can never be one, but you can also be a business. Although I am not a specialist in that, so I wouldn't necessarily know.
Are there any restrictions on the number of OZs that one can invest at any given time?
No, you can invest as many as you want.
Okay, that's it for the questions for now. I think we have a good amount of time left for the breakout room. Does anyone have any last questions that they want to bring up to the group that we want to discuss?
All right, I'm excited for this breakout room.
Okay, so let's get to it. I actually can't see the breakout room option though. I think only the host does. It should be in the very bottom.
Yes, I can't see it either. So that's
really?
Yeah. So maybe we don't have any breakout room, guys.
Oh no.
Let me see. Is there a way to do that just like on the fly to create that in a webinar?
So in order for me to have gotten that, I had to go to the Zoom webpage in order to check the box to see breakout rooms. I wonder if, oh, let me see.
I added Samantha's host.
Okay. Let me try. Oh, yeah.
Well,
yeah, it's not there.
Yeah.
Sorry about that, you guys. We were really excited to try that, but technical difficulties here. next time we'll try to have it worked out so that everyone can meet each other. I think this is just in lieu of at Apple Park. I think a lot of us after the real estate investment club meetings, a lot of us will just hang around, kind of chat with each other, try to meet each other. So hopefully we'll try to get this through next time. So if you can join us for the next first Wednesday.
Yeah, and next time I think we could also, if the audience is small enough, just have everyone in with their videos on, because I love talking to a crowd instead of this empty chat box people. So I would have to do that. This is a webinar, and this is a separate meeting. Okay, so it's a webinar, not a meeting.
Ah.
So meetings can do breakout rooms, not webinars. Okay.
Okay.
Well, thanks everyone for attending. We will send the recorded webinar and the slides. Hopefully we'll do this. We'll do this again soon, and hopefully we'll do a breakout rooms next time.
Yeah, sorry about that. And feel free to reach out to me. I'm on Slack. I post on the Real Estate Investment Club when we have these meetings or webinars. So feel free to reach out to me whenever you want. I'm also in Apple directory. All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye, guys.